Welcome to the revision series of human physiology. First, we have body fluids and circulation. This is an important topic, and this chapter is divided into three parts. First will be body fluids, then it will be blood groups, and then the circulation part, in which we have structure of heart, systemic circulation, and then we have portal circulation. So, body fluids. It starts with an NCERT line. Blood is the most commonly used body fluid by most of the higher organisms, including human beings. And then lymph is also mentioned in this whole page. That one thing you have to remember is that blood is a special connective tissue, which is also given in your structural organization in animals chapter, that blood is a special connective tissue. Next, there are certain quantities and compositions of blood and its various components that are given in NCERT. It is all mentioned, and this is a flowchart which will help you remember that. So blood is made up of 50 to 55% plasma, and other 45% is blood corpuscles, which are RBCs, WBCs, platelets, etc. And plasma, as it is mentioned in the NCERT, 90 to 92% of plasma is actually water, and 6 to 8% of it is proteins. So you have to remember that there are three types of proteins: fibrinogen, globulins, and albumins. We'll see their function later. So, and then coming to blood corpuscles part, all the blood quantities of different blood corpuscles are given in per millimeter cube. So remember that RBCs, which are present in the highest quantity, it is 5 to 5.5 million RBCs per millimeter cube of blood. WBCs are present in least amount, which is 6,000 to 8,000 per millimeter cube of blood, and platelets is 1.5 to 3.5 lakhs per millimeter cube of blood. Now WBCs are divided into two parts: granulocytes and agranulocytes. And then there are three types of granulocytes given in NCERT: neutrophils, basophils, and eosinophils, and two in agranulocytes: monocytes and lymphocytes. And then all the quantities, for example, neutrophils form 60 to 65% of WBCs, not 60 to 65% of granulocytes. So all of the percentages are given with respect to total WBC count. So neutrophils are 60 to 65% of WBCs. Next, basophils is least, which is 0.5 to 1% of WBCs. Eosinophil is 2 to 8%. Next, agranulocytes, it has two types: monocytes and lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, and both B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes form 20 to 25% of WBC count, and monocytes form 6 to 8% of WBC count. Next, we have proteins which are present in plasma, and three mentioned in NCERT, which are fibrinogen, globulins, and albumins. So fibrinogen, they help in clotting; globulins, they help in defense; and albumins, as you have studied in excretion chapter, that they help in maintaining osmotic balance. Fibrinogen, by name itself, you can say that it helps in clotting. Next, this important paragraph is given in NCERT regarding plasma. It starts with plasma is a straw colored fluid, and then goes on to say that plasma has certain minerals, glucose, amino acids, and lipids. And you have to remember the name of all the minerals which are present. That is sodium, magnesium, chloride ions, and calcium ions, and bicarbonate ions. So it is sodium, calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate, and chloride ions. Next, they are always transit in the body, which is given in NCERT. And then there are certain factors of coagulation which help in coagulations, which are also present in plasma. All of these many of these factors are proteinaceous in nature. And then there is one line in NCERT which is very important, that plasma without the clotting factor is called serum. Next, we have this one point given in NCERT about clotting factors. So let's talk about these clotting factors. Actually, there are 13 clotting factors, but only 4 are mentioned in NCERT in the clotting part, out of which clotting factor 1 is fibrinogen, which has already come up, and 3 will come up later. So the other 3 are prothrombin, tissue thromboplastin, and calcium. So the calcium there is one line in NCERT at the end of clotting part, which says that calcium plays an important role in clotting of the blood. Next, coming to blood corpuscles part. So there are three types: RBCs, leukocytes, and platelets. Three parts are given in NCERT. So starting with RBCs, it starts with very basic facts like RBC is biconcave in shape in most mammals. It has a quaternary protein called hemoglobin, which gives it its red color. Next, they don't have a nucleus, and then it is formed in the bone marrow, and it is disposed of in the spleen, which is graveyard of RBCs. And next, an important quantity is mentioned, which is the quantity of hemoglobin that is present in blood. So there is 12 to 16 gram of hemoglobin in 100 ml of blood. Quantities in this chapter are important in body fluids and circulation, respiration, and excretion. They can ask you questions related to quantities. For example, you should know the total lung capacity from the respiratory chapter, and you should know the amount of urea formed as filtrate E per day from the excretion chapter. And next, one more fact that is given in NCERT is that lifespan of RBC is 120 days. So the only 2 points that are worth remembering is 12 to 16 gram of hemoglobin present in 100 ml of blood, and lifespan of RBC, which is 120 days. Next, coming to WBCs, these are leukocytes, and they lack hemoglobin, and they have a short-lived nucleus. And granulocytes, which are green under the microscope, they have three types: neutrophils, which form 60 to 65% of all the WBC count, as we have seen, and neutrophils, they help in phagocytosis. So neutrophils in granulocytes and monocytes in agranulocytes, they both help in phagocytosis. Next, we have basophils, which are present in the least amount, as you must have remembered. They help in inflammatory reaction. They release histamine, serotonin, and heparin. They help in inflammatory reaction. And then we have eosinophils, which help in allergic reaction, and they resist infection. This is an important distinction actually. So eosinophil, they help in allergic reaction, and basophil, they help in inflammatory reaction. And people get confused over here. And so eosinophil, basophil, and neutrophils, all these diagrams are given in NCERT. You can see that basophils appear blue in the staining, and eosinophils appear red. Next, as agranulocyte, in agranulocytes, as I have mentioned, that monocyte help in phagocytosis. And then there are two types of lymphocytes, which are T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes, which help in immune response of the body. Now, B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes are both formed in bone marrow, but they mature in different places. T lymphocytes, as you can see from the main name, it is thymus dependent lymphocytes, and they mature in thymus. And B lymphocytes, they mature in bone marrow itself. Next, platelets are also called thrombocytes, and they are cell fragments, as NCERT says, and they are made in bone marrow itself, just like RBCs, from a special cells called megakaryocytes. Platelets, as I've already mentioned, there are 1.5 to 3.5 lakhs of platelet per millimeter cube of blood. Next, platelets can release a variety of substances, and NCERT goes on to mention that one of the most important substances that platelet releases help in clotting of blood. Now, and without these platelets, there can be excess of loss of blood from the body, etc. And you should remember all the clotting factors that are present in the blood, in the plasma. And as we have seen, there are 4 major clotting factors that are mentioned in NCERT that is present in plasma. Along with that, substances released from platelets also help in clotting of blood. In the next part, I will go over blood groupings in human, antigen-antibody interactions, RH blood grouping, ABO blood grouping, and also the 2 cases that are given in NCERT of blood transfusion, organ transplant, and erythroblastosis fetalis.